Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Storytelling Chronicles. I'm your host, the Bodacious Cowboy. Let's get this story started. Say what?
Look out! Pop, pop, it's showtime. 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 Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. Oh, they don't know. Gone tell. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Showed up. I'm wearing Cuban links. Yeah. Designer mix. Yeah. Inglewood's finest shoes. Whoop, whoop. Don't look too hard, might hurt yourself. Known to give the color red the blues. Woo, shit. I'm a dangerous man with some money in my pocket. Keep up. So many pretty girls around me and they're waking up the rocket. Keep up.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Storytelling Chronicles. It is Monday, December 11th. I am the Bodacious Cowboy. I have a great guest that's going to be joining me shortly. Hopefully, everybody had an awesome weekend. I did. I was in Atlantic City and hit a jackpot. But let's get into more important things. I'm going to bring in Chris right now. Hey, Chris. How you doing, buddy?
Great, Jeff. Good to see you, man. How are you doing?
I am doing bodacious. How's about that?
Obviously. Still my favorite intro music, man. It never gets old.
Yeah, there you go. I changed it up, I don't know, probably about a month ago.
Love it.
Hey, for those out there who don't know who Chris Fields is, tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Chris Fields. I'm in Tampa, and I spent the last 15 years at TQL before joining the team at Zelh Logistics. So, for several years, I was one of the top brokers at TQL. I built their Tampa office from 6 people to 250 or so, and then kind of moved into some other management roles with their largest enterprise accounts. And then earlier this year, joined the team at Zelh. So I'm VP of Sales over at Zelh Logistics.
Awesome. You and I met down at the Broker Carrier Summit down in Tampa not so long ago. I believe everybody had a great time down there, and that a lot of partnerships and friendships were created from that event.
Yeah, I think so. And we've talked about this, just the atmosphere, the broker carrier shipper relationships. I think there's a lot of room to improve.
Right.
It starts with, communication and those kind of things, because I hate to say it, but I've seen plenty of bad apples over the years that really kind of hurt our image. So I want to work towards changing that and helping as many sides as we can.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you. I'm all in. That's why I'm dedicating my podcast all the way until April, strictly about broker, carrier, and shipper relations, the tensions that come along with those relationships, what's not said, what should be said, what's not transparent, that should be transparent. And like you said, collaboration and congruency to some avail should be first and foremost when everybody's talking. But it seems like that's so short, isn't it?
It is. You sometimes, especially on the broker side,
Yeah.
You get some hot shots that come in there and think they run the show, and they forget that we are nothing without the carriers, and that these shippers, you must have a good relationship with them as well. I remember when I ran a book of business, it was one of the larger ones at TQL, and I made it a point at all of my regular shippers to get to know as many people as I could there, whether that was the accounting side, whether it was the dock workers, the guys loading the truck, whatever it was. I wanted to know as many people as I could there, because, maybe I had a truck running late and I needed a favor, and I could call those individuals. But it was always about, like you said, just transparency, communication, those kind of things across all sides.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm not the kind of person that throws companies under the bus, but my side, your ex side, a lot of sides out there. I'll just say that. There's a huge problem with training. I know it. You know it. You went through it. I went through it on the shipper side, especially when I had brokers reaching out to me or what is being said to carriers or vice versa. I mean, it's not just on the broker side, right?
Right, it is. And I don't think there's enough training on the relationship side. The training seems to be focused on call shippers, get new clients, get new customers. There's another side to that transaction, and that's that carrier side. And I don't think there's enough focus on that. Some of my best customers, I was not able to grow without what I called primary carriers.
Right.
Carriers that I treated the right way, that I was transparent with, that I, paid attention. I let them know about appointment times, those kind of things. It's important and it's overlooked.
Yeah, it truly is. And, I think, well, I'm not going to say think. I know that there's a huge problem when brokers call brokers to ask them for help.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think, and it's a shame. I think, the seniority guys that have been in the business for a long time that know the ropes compared to the ones that are still wet behind the ears that are just entering. And these brokers, companies that are out there that are willing to give somebody a chance. The thing I'll say I know is that pretty much they give them a chair, they give them a phone, they give them a laptop, and they go. I mean, most simplistic way. Shouldn't there be some type of process improvement plan or work instruction where you sit down with a mentor or a coach and it takes like maybe, I don't know, it takes a hell of a long time to learn the business, but I mean, at least 8 weeks of training of going through and doing all these different things and the type of barriers that you come up against and the hurdles and the obstacles. I mean, there's so many of them because you and I both know that in brokerage, it's like a 95% failure rate. Every time you call somebody, you're going to get a no.
Yes.
A lot of these kids that are coming in, they can't handle it. The stress and, you hear all these horrible things that happen to people all the time with this stress. I mean, what needs to be done? And I'm not just saying it for one company, I'm saying across the board. What is the best thing that brokers can do to help their people to learn about the people who they reach out to?
So there is a little bit of training, but you weren't very far off. You work under another account, you learn the terminology and some of the, they call it a senior broker's account. You learn a little bit about those, but then there hits a point where they say, okay, here's your desk, here's a phone, good luck. And turnovers through the roof. Most people aren't cut out for it. The ones that succeed, I think, do a lot of work themselves learning about the industry, because the training will tell you so much. But I used to remember some of the most successful ones that would, read freight waves, get transport topics, and just educate themselves.
Right.
And another thing that really helped me was when I started to get a few loads over the road, I started talking to drivers more.
Yeah.
They've been doing it a lot longer than I had. And I said, where are you headed after this? And, tell me about, and some of the introductions you could get were amazing, but it's really on you to educate yourself and to look up to those that have been doing it a lot longer than you and ask for advice.
Yeah. And, when you bring in new recruits, candidates that are jumping into the field, what's the success rate? Like out of 10 people that come on board, how many are going to stay? How many are going to leave? And here's the trick here. From your estimate, how much time and money do brokerages spend on training that's not going to come out to be anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's what I'll say is out of 10, I think 2 succeed and stay at the company. But from those 2, 1 may be successful on the sales side. The other branches off and goes into operations, which is absolutely important. But 2 out of 10, 1 in sales, 1 in operations. It's, the expectations are laid out up front. Here's what you're going to be doing and good luck. I just don't think a lot of people are cut out for it. I mentioned this recently to Blythe on her show that I was turned down when I applied the first time.
I heard that.
I couldn't believe it.
I watched the show and I heard that. I was like, whoops.
Bothered me.
That's like IBM firing Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Whoops.
It lit a fire, and I applied again, and it turned out to be great. And I'm very, very grateful for the things that they provided and taught me. But I think it could be improved. I don't like that we've gotten from 2008, 2009, where we're turning down applicants to just, you apply, you get a job, and come join us, because that's just a revolving door. And that's only going to hurt what you and I have talked about, the broker, carrier, shipper relationships, if they just get a new voice every time they call.
How much money does a brokerage spend on a candidate that just comes in the door? I mean,
Yeah.
Have you been able to figure that out in your role?
Well, let's think about this. Think about the in-house recruiters that they spend money on. They get paid a salary, they get paid bonuses to bring in applicants. Think about the time spent by hiring managers to interview, and then onboarding and HR, and then the salary for these starting brokers. If you pay them 35, 40, 45,000, whatever it may be, it varies depending on the city. But there's a lot of cost to do that, only to have that individual leave 6 months later.
Right.
So I think we could get better. I think maybe being a little bit more selective, maybe being upfront with the expectations a little bit more. And then also what you said, the training.
Yeah.
We could train better on that side of things.
Did you do role playing?
We did from time to time, but rather than doing I'll act like I'm calling you and we'll bounce off each other, I preferred to have individuals listen in on a phone call with me. And just a blank cold call. I have no idea. I may get hung up on. I don't know what they're going to say, but I'd rather you listen in. And then what you do from that is you say, well, after the phone call, I said this, I got this kind of reaction. It either went well or it didn't. Next time when I get asked that question, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to go this route, and just get better. And if you do that thousands of times, you're going to get pretty dang good at it.
How about scripts? Did you give out scripts for the newbies that were coming on board?
No. Everyone, it's an open floor plan for the most part. You could hear people, and every now and then you'd hear somebody who had a different opening line than you, or maybe said something a little bit different. And I heard a lot of that shared from time to time, but I don't think you should have a script I couldn't imagine coming on here with you and going, all right, when Jeff asked me this, I'm going to say this.
Right. I don't like scripts.
No.
I just like to do it ad hoc,
Exactly.
just come on board and let it fly.
Exactly. And I think that's where it's most natural and it's most endearing, and you get the most respect. The carriers that I worked with, they said, I like Chris. He's upfront with me. He's honest. He doesn't feel like he's selling me on anything. And same for the shippers and all sides. If they do that, I think we'd be in a better spot.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Chris. And, another thing too, I think one of the hardest things, because I did operate a freight brokerage for about 2 years, and identifying each individual's niche,
yes,
the value and the vertical in which they're going to work in. When I say the niche, not the niche vertical, but the niche mode, vertical, commodity, what they want to, and the value that they're going to create for themselves, not just for themselves, but for the company brand, and how it's marketed. And like I said, I don't throw any companies under, but I know, because I was on that receiving side, Chris, for 35 years and used to get hammered by brokers that didn't know who I was, the company, and their product line and where their facilities are. I think that's highly important for somebody to know that, to have the upper hand, the advantage. I think there's a ton of benefits in there. When I was working, I used the CRM called Profit back in the day. And what we used to do is when you made those phone calls, you would enter all that information, who you spoke with, and of course, birthdays, wife, kids, sport, all this other kind of stuff, right? And sometimes when you come across and you get that boom, that hang up, like real quick or whatever, don't call me again. Yet they stay in the CRM for a lengthy period of time. A new comes on board. They go, oh yeah, we got a ton of leads. They go, where you want to go or something. They populate these leads that said, don't call me. I mean, so what's the point of doing. I understand a different person, right? A different person is taking that lead, not the same one who made that call. But at that time, and the way that I felt as a shipper, that brand is ruined.
Sure.
Because that person who represented that brand and was pretty much BSing about what they could do, where they could do it, why they did it, so forth and so on, that destroyed them. And I would never ever do business with companies like that. I would rather have a broker say, "Sir, that's a great question. I don't know.
Mhm.
Let me find out for you, and I'll get
Yes.
back to you with the answer, to see if we could move this peanut forward a little bit."
Yes.
But I'm not going to BS them and say stuff that I can't really back up. But
Yep.
yet that happens quite a bit.
It does. And such a good point you make. Some of the smartest people I've ever met will say what you just said. They'll say, "I don't know, but I'm going to find out and I'll get back to you." And I think that's incredibly important. Why wing it when you don't have the answer?
But they do.
They do.
And it's across many different brokers out there. I'm talking big brokers,
Yeah.
like we're talking like millions and millions of dollars that they do annually. And yet you still hear them. I get the DMs. I get calls. "Hey, listen, if you ever need extra capacity, let me know." And I'm like, "Dude, do you know who you're calling?" Seriously, that's just the typical pray and spray.
Yes.
If anybody's going to bite on it, but they don't realize that that company brand is out there, and then the word of mouth gets out there. I mean, you hear it, I've heard it, and it's not good. I wouldn't want that brand or someone to think that way about my company.
Right.
My reputation's on the line.
Yeah, I think you have to be unique. Like what you just said, the DMs you get or the cold calls where you say, "Hey, I'm calling from so-and-so brokerage and wondering what your most common lanes are, and I have trucks." That doesn't work. If you are sincere, whether you're calling a broker, a shipper, or a carrier, and you ask genuine questions and remember those answers and work on a solution for it, that's all this is. It's a relationship where there are problems and you have to come up with solutions. And I used to tell people, they were so discouraged when they got on phone calls and the person on the other end wasn't a good fit to work with, or they disqualified them. I said, that is a great phone call. You have determined that we don't have a solution for them. And that doesn't just apply to logistics industry. That applies to any industry. It's, hey, I don't need to call them back.
Right.
Maybe check in next year and they've grown and their model has changed, but I determined that it's not a good fit to move forward. I saw so many people who would get on those phone calls and then they would continue to call them just to act like they were busy. No, it's disqualified, on to the next, and work towards customers that we can turn into clients and have solutions for.
Right. Now, every company has their own model in which they live by. They go down their own path, whether they want to go down a path that's highly traveled or a path that's not really that traveled, and you have to go with a sickle. That's where I like to go. But I remember, just tell me if I'm off base here, because you've been on the broker side a hell of a lot longer than me, and I'd love to learn this, but this is just from my own analytical background and what I saw and realized. To do a call properly, it takes about 7 minutes to make that phone call, to write down that information, to enter it in the CRM correctly without rushing it. And if you're under the gun to make 50 calls a day, 250 a week, 1,000 a month, 3,000 a quarter, if you take that 7 minutes and you times that by 3,000 calls, that's 21,000 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that 21,000 minutes of making those 3,000 calls, you're going to qualify probably 6% of that 3,000, or about 180 that would probably be qualified. Out of the 180 in that 3 months time, you're going to hit about 2% or 3.6 prospects will come on board. The problem with that is that you don't know what wheelhouse that revenue falls in, because you're making phone calls. They're making them quick. You don't have time to study. or find out their background or do the homework or anything like that.
Mhm.
The way that I prefer to do it, and I preach it quite a bit, is that I would rather take that 21,000 minutes of time that's really not that productive, because you can hit like a 75,000 a year transportation spend from one company. You might get lucky, hit 500K, get
Yep.
really, really lucky, hit $1.5 million, right? So if you take all that, you're probably around 1.7 million, somewhere around that for all that time spent. Now, if you took that 21,000 minutes and you kind of zoned in on the top 10, your top 10 that fits your niche, the vertical, the value driven that you bring to the table, and you go after 10, 20, 30 million dollar big hitters and
Mhm.
you land one, I would call that time well spent. What are your
Sure.
thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, a couple great points that you made there, and this is almost embarrassing. But when I first started out, my first few weeks, when they sat me at the desk and said, "Here's a phone, good luck," I made 1,250 calls a week.
Woo!
It's absurd. No one was doing it, but I said, I'm going to figure
Wow.
this out, or I'm going to fail and go into something that I'm better at. But I learned from it, and I did what you're kind of getting into. Then I went into more targeted phone calls and longer conversations, and said, well, this has longer potential or better potential. I need to focus more on it. The problem is those larger accounts take a lot of time.
You do.
Time you first start talking to them until you start seeing freight from them, it could be months.
Absolutely.
So what you do is you build a book of business, and you don't ignore those first few customers, but maybe they don't have a whole lot of freight, and you shift your focus to, the larger accounts. And I'm not selling Zelh here, but that's what I like about what we're doing, is that we're allowing the salespeople, the brokers, the ones who are good at calling and forming relationships, to focus on that. Take the accounting off their plate, take the back office off their plate.
Right.
It's like you, Jeff. I wouldn't want you doing accounting all day. I'd rather you form relationships and the things that you're good at, and so that's kind of what I think we need to move towards, is find your swim lane, stay in it, and run in it.
Yeah. And, I mean, I will agree with you 100% that every account, every prospect that you reach out to, and you're trying to build those relationships, you're months away from them even coming into that pipeline, whether they're big, a 10 million, or they're a 50,000, year spender.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. Relationships take time, but it's how you relate to these people.
Yes.
Are you talking their language? And I don't want to upset anybody, but if you have a small shipper, that traffic manager, that logistics manager really isn't going to be well viced. I mean, it's not a knock, but it just happens to come with the territory, because if you were that intelligent and stuff like that, you might want to get into that big hitter kind of thing where you're getting slammed from side to side, right?
Yeah.
So if you go after the big guy, and the guy that's got $100 million spent, he's like a damn rocket scientist.
Yes.
I mean, you better outsmart him, and you better grab his attention quickly within the first 10, 15 seconds, because that guy, I know for a fact that he hasn't had the time of day to blow his nose.
Yeah.
Seriously, because he's getting pulled from one direction to the other direction. That's why, maybe I lean on that side because I worked on that side for 35 years, but that's the kind of person I would love to talk to. And I ran into a couple of them that kind of stumped me, and I loved it. I really loved it, because the person that called me had intent. They had knowledge. They knew the industry. They knew where the facilities were, what I did, when I did it, why I did it. Everything that I needed to know, they knew, and they knew it a little bit better.
Yes.
And that created a long-term business relationship. And plus, when you have those long-term business relationships, Chris, and the way that I look at it, instead of the transactional side, you have less risk, you have more control, even though it's dedicated, because I love that side. You have more control because you can predict things that are going to happen. It happens every single week. The same drivers are on the same lane. So you're really saving additional costs when you think about that. And it's an ease of doing business compared to that transactional. I press that and I sell it all the time. Like I said in the beginning, I don't make phone calls that much, but that's key
It
to
is.
relationships to shippers, brokers, and carriers in understanding the same language, because you've heard the grapevine, right?
Hmm.
A lot of shippers love to pull things over your eyes, pull the wool over your eyes, and go. You ask them a real simple question: how long does it take to load the truck? Oh, it's a piece of cake, probably 45, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. But in reality, it takes 3 hours.
Yep.
3 hours, and no, it's not palletized; it's floor loaded. So those kind of things. So you go and you tell the carrier, because that's what was told to you. The carrier goes there and they're like, hey, Jeff, this guy, I've been here for 4 hours and they're 3/4 of the way through. That's a relationship killer right off the bat. Why shippers do that, I've caught them red-handed. I don't know, but there's a lot of brokers and carriers that do the same thing, and there's no benefit to it.
We have to be transparent. And I mean, you did a good job bringing this full circle right now. It's about the relationships and can they trust you? And, a very smart friend of mine told me, he said that in any deal making opportunity, whether it's in logistics, whatever it may be, he said there are two things: there's greed and there's fear. And if you can address both of those, you'll accomplish something. And it's, when you're talking to a carrier, it's make sure that they're paid properly.
Yeah.
And make sure you address their fears. Are you lying to them about the appointment time? Have they heard? So you brought that full circle. And then, the smaller shippers, I would say, don't just discredit them or give up. Some of my largest accounts came from, it was a small shipper out of Houston. They did 3 or 4 loads a week.
Yep.
She just happened to have a son who worked at another company who was in charge of shipping, who then referred me to a large company in North Carolina. And so I think those relationships and talking to people, regardless of how large they are, you never know who they might know and who's in their network.
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I have my first original freight bill on my wall that's framed.
Yeah.
And I'm still on board today since 2019. And they're a small shipper.
Yeah.
I grew from that because I just didn't like that. One of my really good friends, I went to school with her. She opened up the door because I didn't know my ass from my elbow, just being honest on the sales side, doing that kind of stuff. And you're right. It did blossom. And all of my customers that I have on board been with me 2 to 4 years.
Sure.
Since I've been doing this, but I've just been feeding that and growing it, small, and it just started, manifesting itself on its own. But you mentioned before greed and fear.
Yes.
The way I look at it, there's 2 ways. There's service and profits. The ones who look at profits and not the service have been misdirected. It should be service over profits every single day of the week, because if you over-service your customers, profits, I guarantee, will come. And
Absolutely.
it will come more than you can even imagine. But if you don't service and put them first before the profits, you're going to lose out and lose out bad. I don't know. I can't say it any worse than that, but you will lose bad.
Yeah, that's what happens, especially in a tight market. And I hope we get back to that, soon, whether it's middle or late next year. I'd like to see that for the carriers and
I do too. I've seen a lot of major bankruptcies, foreclosures over my time, and some of the best carriers out there. I had friends that were drivers, owners of these companies, and you see them close your doors. It's like, man, they've been doing business with me for years and years and years, and it comes down to this. It's really sad. It's sad across the board.
I don't like it. I saw this morning that a carrier who was owed $170,000 by a company that recently went out of business, and they're probably not going to be able to get it. And I hate to see that. So these are carriers that did their job and they delivered the loads, and now they're stuck. And I think there's a lot of that going on, and I hate to see it. So I want us to get back to a market that is good for all sides.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. So let's just spend a little bit of time on the Carrier Broker Summit. We have the one that's coming up in Kansas City, of course, April 22nd and 24th. Let me just bring this up real quick. Should come out. There we go. It's going to be a great outing. I'm telling you, the first one in Tampa, well, it's the second one because the first one was in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
And they went to Tampa. Indianapolis had 75 participants, I believe, the first one. This one had in Tampa 227, so 3 times that amount, which is great. I'm looking for 1,000 people right now to come to Kansas City. It's all hands on deck. Everybody that went there, you went there as well. I think, like I said in the beginning, a lot of relationships were built. A lot of partnerships were built as well. I hired somebody that went there, as a matter of fact.
That's awesome.
Just recently. And and I'll tell you, if you want to learn about how the industry works and the fears, like you mentioned, Chris, earlier, we can help you get over those obstacles and those barriers that you feel you can't get through. Because that first day in Tampa, I can tell you right now, you had brokers on one side of the room and you had carriers on the other side of the room. A few cocktails started going down. The next thing you know, they were mingling, they were shaking hands, they were really conversing. And it's something that really should be attended. You can go to the website, the Broker Carrier Summit website. Check it out. It's still a lot of things are going on. We're still developing the agenda. We have top-notch speakers that are going to. We have a keynote speaker, an ex-NFL guy. Check it out. Go there and register. And also, if you registered now, we still have the early bird special till the end of the month. And I will personally give anybody out there that goes and registered and uses Cowboy One an additional 5% on top of that, which is a good savings when you look at the cost. But it's definitely something that you should invest in, and a total worth of your time to leave the office and mingle with people who have the same fears and the misunderstandings that you have. And I can tell you, when you walk away from there, you'll feel a little bit better about yourself and your company and about the people, whether they're shippers or carriers, how they work, and it will make the industry be a lot better than what it is.
I think so. I've been to plenty of these conferences over the years, and the Broker Carrier Summit has a different climate to it. It doesn't feel like people are showing up there with an agenda to sell you on anything. They want to make friends, form partnerships, and learn about issues and how they can get better. And that group is going to keep growing, and they're going to grow together, whether they are a shipper, a broker, carrier, whatever it may be. There's still a good 25 to 30 people that I met in Tampa that I still talk to on a regular basis. And that's hard to find.
I do too. And it was definitely well worth it. It's been a long time, Chris, since I went to an event. Of course, when you start your own business and stuff, trying to find that free time, especially when you're trying to, make a business a lot better, it's kind of hard to find that, But I said, you know what, I'm doing it. And then after that show and that event, I was a speaker down there as well. And I'll tell you what, I'm all in. I'm here on out. I'm in. I want to see the industry change. I want to leave a legacy. I've been in it for 43 years. I've seen a lot of crap go on in logistics, the evolution of it. We're not there yet. We're far from it. It's just like back in the 80s. Yes, we're in 2023 right now, but it's the same looking in the 80s. The stuff that's going to come into play is going to be so kick-ass. I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's just like it's going to be amazing. I may not be around to see that come to fruition 20, 25 years from now, but
you'll be here. Come on now.
It's gonna happen. It will happen. And if you're not careful, as they say, history will repeat itself. So train yourself, do homework, learn every single day. There's no experts out there. If you're an expert, that means that there's nothing more to learn or know about. And if you're not learning every single day, you're going to be left behind. I learn every single day. I'm a sponge, and I love being in a room with people who are much smarter than me. And I've got a good set of ears on, and I just want to absorb.
That's how it's done, Jeff. That's great.
Yep. So, Chris, tell everybody out there how they can get in contact with you, and just real quick about.
Yeah. Real quick, ZellLogistics.com is our website. And then I mentioned this on LinkedIn recently. There's been a lot of people affected by layoffs and things in our industry. If I can help in any way with interview tips, resumes, networking, please reach out for that. And then on the Zelh side, remote staffing, we're in Eastern Europe, and the folks that we have over there are really, really good at what they do. So would love to talk to anyone out there.
Awesome. Well, that's the end of our show today. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. I thought we had an engaging conversation. Love to have you come back and join in the future.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. So everybody out there, thank you so much for watching Storytelling Chronicles. I'm the Bodacious Cowboy. I hope everybody out there enjoys the rest of your week. Take care. See you soon.